Hey everybody, this is my 20-gallon Angelfish tank, and if you'll notice off to the right, you can see the angelfish down there. He probably thinks he's getting some dinner. I usually feed him over on that side of the tank. But today my concern is if you look in the tank, you'll see how much root growth I have from my water Sprite here. And it really hinders how much swimming around room this angelfish has. They don't need a lot. They're not, the kind of fish, they're not like Danios that dart and dash around the tank, but he does need room to be able to move around the tank, and it's being really restricted by all the roots in here. So I was going to do a before and after video, my water change. I'm going to wipe down the glass. You can see I got some algae growing on the glass, and the water level's getting a bit low, so rather than topping it off, I'm just going to actually do a water change. But instead of doing a before and after water change, I decided we're just going to do a little video about my water Sprite here. And we're going to actually pull some of this out and thin it out and show you what it looks like. For one thing, you'll notice that there's two different types of growth. One of my viewers finally figured this out for me. I could not understand why it was looking so weird all the time. But once it grows up above the water surface and is exposed to the atmospheric air, you'll get growth like this. But if it's actually still within your tank and you can either plant it or float it, you'll get growth that looks more like this broadleaf type stuff. So this is what's actually growing in the tank, and these are all little babies. You can see that sort of center piece there, and then we've got the little root mass at the bottom, and multiple ones are coming up together. So that will just get thrown in here for now, and eventually that thing is going to be full by the time I'm done this, or not necessarily full, but pretty close to it. And they will all go into my grow out tank. So don't forget, I do sell my water Sprite. So all this stuff that's being plucked off of here is going to go into my grow out tank, and it won't be long before I have some larger plants again. So the goal tonight is actually to thin this out without really removing the larger plant. I normally do it by looking down into the tank so I can see where I'm grabbing root masses rather than just sort of randomly doing it, but I'm trying to do it one-handed while I'm on video here, and it makes it a little more challenging. Sometimes I'll have to actually break sort of the tip of the plant off, kind of like that. The end piece sort of comes off with it, and that's okay. I don't, it doesn't have to remain completely intact. This stuff's a really, really durable, hardy plant, and even if you break it up a lot, it doesn't hurt it. It just, it just bounces right back. Now, you do have to wait for it to grow back. If you mess it all up and, you bust your plant all up and it doesn't look good anymore, you do have to wait for it to grow back. But fear not, it will grow back. And I'm just pulling babies out of here. When I actually stop looking at my viewfinder for a minute and pay attention to what I'm doing with my hands, it's a lot more efficient. So forgive me for sloppy camera work at the moment. I'm actually trying to see what I'm doing here. And you can kind of see now that we're getting through it a little bit. I hope you can sort of tell how I'm going in here and just sort of picking out all these little offspring that are growing off of all these main branches, and what we're going to be left with is going to be one big central root mass, which is what I want, and then the main body of this is going to be very much more open. Light will be able to pass through it. The roots will be much more compact, and we will have some room in there for the angelfish to swim around. So this part here still looks like it's got a bunch of little babies in it. Oh, there's a big old clump right there that needs to come out. I'm going to break that whole entire frond off. Now this chunk actually has a bunch of this darker green cyanobacteria growing on it, so this batch is going to have to get treated. I didn't realize I had that cyanobacteria in this tank. See how bright green that is? That's what that is. So no biggie, I'm not worried about it, but it is in there, and I do like to try to kill that off before I get it growing in all of my other tanks, especially my grow out tanks with my plants in them. So that is... pull these out of here. I missed all them. So that is how easy it is to trim up a water sprite. And you can see how much more open it is through that way. Now the tank's going to be all sort of cloudy and everything, but you can see how I've got one sort of central root mass now. And if I wanted, I could even get in there and trim those roots up a little bit. But my angelfish has a lot more swimming around room, and I don't know, I might get in there and see if I can thin that out even just a little bit more. But it's a lot less than it used to be. It really is only just this one sort of central mass right here now. And all of those little offspring that were growing on these main fronds are now in that bucket right there. So that is a lot of offspring. My water sprite grows like crazy, but only downstairs. My upstairs tanks do not really grow water sprite. I float it on the surface and it just fades away, and eventually it just sort of melts, and I just don't have water sprite in my tanks upstairs for some reason. Down here the stuff grows like mad. As you can see, what we just did, that was pretty much typical, you know, thinning out the water sprite. I do that all the time on all of my tanks down here. Every tank I've got down in the basement that has water sprite in it, I do that regularly, which is why, as I said, I have lots of water sprite for sale. So there you go. That was my little Saturday night water sprite update. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, this one is my 20-gallon angelfish tank. I'll see you real soon in the next one.